away.
Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 5 of the Social Work Rants podcast. Hope all is well. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody, wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That's all one word. Hit the red subscribe button on YouTube. Also follow the podcast on Twitter at Social Work Rants and on Facebook, aka Meta, at type in the Social Work Rants podcast. Hit that like button. Thank you everybody for tuning in, tapping in. Saludos a todos. Muchas gracias por todo su apoyo. I just want a quick shout out to everybody who's been supporting and rocking with the podcast these last 2 years. Hit 100 episodes. So definitely rocking into the next 100 episodes. So this podcast is brought to you by Bassity Entertainment, your home for online holistic self-care for social workers and mental health professionals using poetry and Zumba with the book Triumph Through Pain, How to Maximize Your Full Potential During Hard Times is out on Amazon in both paperback and on Kindle, written by yours truly. For those who purchased, thank you. Make sure you get a copy. It's definitely talk about my trauma during the pandemic and still celebrating, embracing my reset in terms of all the great things that's also happened since the pandemic has started. And also be on the lookout for the upcoming book that I'm a contributing author. Latinx and Social Work Volume 2 is coming out on October 5th. Is a big book launch party in New York City. I've been, if you follow the podcast on Instagram or my business page, Bad City Entertainment, I've been posting about it. So make sure you get your tickets for that. Definitely talk about addiction in the book. So a lot of people are going to be really shocked what I wrote. So, and speaking of addiction, which leads to a perfect segue, I can't believe it's been just over 2 years ago that I spoke to this gentleman. Actually, was just listening to that episode, taking notes, preparing for this for the part two. Mr. Tim Ryan, it was actually my first interview back 2 years ago, which is crazy. Um, but definitely,
It's been 2 years
yes, just over
in
2 years.
crazy pandemic. It's
Yes,
hard to wrap my mind around. And thank you for having me on your show. And thank you for writing another book. If you're in New York, get there. October 5th, is it?
yeah,
November
October
5th?
5th, October 5th.
That's awesome. Book
Yeah,
launch, New York.
yes, New York, a book launch. I'll try to sneak in. I'll try to sell my own book. I'll have my books on me. Um, so, and then
And if not, you can go to Amazon
yes,
and look
absolutely.
up Tim Ryan from Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, and purchase my book.
Absolutely. Hey, we could talk about the book too. So let's so basically it was our first episode was season 1, episode 5. So you can go back and listen to it. So this is the part 2. Actually, no, back then it was June 5th, 2020. We pandemic was a couple months into it, and we had a incredible conversation about people who are in addiction having difficulty finding meetings, not doing well with meetings on Zoom. So I wanted to get a taste of what exactly is going on with Mr. Ryan's work in terms of his advocacy in the addiction field 2 years later, and what exactly is going on. I know fentanyl has been off the chain, and I just want to hear like what's going on regarding 12-step meetings,
Yeah.
and all
Well,
this other good stuff since the pandemic.
when we spoke 2 years ago, hell, 3 weeks after that, my wife and I each got COVID, and we had it for 10 weeks, and it almost killed us. And then we're both long haulers, but at that time, everything was shut down and the Zoom meetings started. And it's crazy. I do a Zoom meeting every morning, every day at 8 a.m. because the guys that have come into my life, I've got a crew of guys in New York, Spain, London, LA, Chicago, and we're thick as thieves. And 90% of these people I've never met, and they know more about me. So that went. And then we started having meetings at people's houses, and now everything's opened up again and life is getting back to somewhat normal. But when COVID hit, my wife and I speak nationwide. All that shut down, and trying to do speaking events over Zoom in schools. We're just starting to get back into speaking into schools now. We're still doing a number of interventions. We still run our podcast, the Tim and Jen show, because addiction is so alive and well. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the mental health pandemic just blew through the roof. Obviously, fentanyl. People keep talking about it. The past 12 years, heroin overdoses or opiate overdoses, and now it's damn near all fentanyl, keep going up. And they've been going up for the past 12 years. What we're doing is not working. It's as simple as that. Our system is completely broken.
Right.
Unless a family has cash or they've got really good insurance, it's very difficult to find proper, appropriate treatment with continued wraparound care. Talking to you as a social worker, a therapist, a psychiatrist, all these variables cost money, cost insurance, whatever, and people trying to navigate that. It's a shit show.
Yes, it is.
And it's just getting worse. It's getting the home, we live here in Los Angeles, California, and the homelessness is just through the roof here. And 90% of them have mental health and substance abuse issues. And why can't we take all this money that they're pissing away and build true inpatient res and detoxes and peer-driven programs and jobs and communities? We wouldn't have these issues, but we have too many politicians making all the rules.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm having a deja vu moment, not because this is our second time having you on the podcast. And you're one of the few that's been on twice, but it's like we basically had the same conversation. It seems like 2 years later, nothing has changed at
Nothing's
all.
changed. Nothing. More people are dead. That's what's changed. And I see I see all these posts. We're giving away Narcan. We're getting communities trained in Narcan. We're giving away fentanyl test strips. Okay, big deal. What we're not explaining is Narcan saved my life a number of times from heroin overdoses. I overdose, ambulance, go to the hospital. 2 to 3 hours later, I walk out the door to go get high again. If we really want to start eradicating this, someone's brought to a hospital due to an overdose, they need to be put on a psychiatric hold immediately. 5 to 7 days would be awesome. That person would have died. They would be dead if Narcan wasn't administered. We're bringing them to a hospital and letting them walk out on their own accord 2 hours later, and you think they have clarity? They don't. And people say, well, we can't force people. You absolutely can. I was forced to go to prison, and that's where I got sober. In a prison cell, on November 1st, I will have 10 years clean and sober. And I got a sponsor in prison and did the steps and still do all that crazy stuff today. So yeah, it does work. That's why they have interventionists to come do interventions. That's why a lot of therapists or social workers, after working with a client, say, you know what, you need to go to treatment, or they set up the intervention. So why aren't we taking people, putting them on a psych hold, and truly having the resources to give them the opportunity to go to a 90-day program and then to go to structured sober living for a year and get their life back, mind, body, and soul, and get a career and start working and learn how to, if we did that, people wouldn't be relapsing and dying. And it's, but it takes work and it takes time. And unfortunately, I feel a lot of the resources, monies are allocated in the wrong areas, and the money just gets pissed away. unfortunately. And there's only so many people like me and you out there that are in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the money gets thrown away. There's been millions and millions of dollars from the COVID relief funds and all this other money that went, and it's like where the money's not really trickling down to places where the money is really needed the most.
Right. Exactly. And it never does. It
It
never,
never does. Yes,
you know, when
exactly.
I ran my nonprofit, we ran it for about 7 years, and we paid for people to get into sober living, or paid for them to go into a long-term faith-based or 12-step based program for like $1,500. But we did all the work ourselves. We didn't have any employees. It took up a ton of time raising money, giving away, booking bus. And people would be like, well, you need to do more. There's only so much I can do. I have a family and I have things I need to do too, but where do you draw the line? It's tough
Yeah.
because unfortunately you get real thick skin and a lot of people die, and it's like you just expect it's going to happen.
No, yeah, of course. There's only so much you could do. I mean, you see people on the street, either hungover or they're high or whether or any sort of substance, and you see just walking on the street, and you almost become desensitized to the situation. I'm like, yeah, I'm a social worker. I'm not on the clock, but I'm just gonna see it, and this if somebody's on the floor like or fall, like I'm gonna be like, okay, like the human aspect gonna be like, are you okay? I'm gonna probably call 911, but at the same time, like I'm not gonna have like a Narcan thing and try to revive a person or anything like that. Like that's
Right.
yeah,
Let me explain what it's like out here in Los Angeles.
yeah,
Where I
please do.
live, one side of the street's LA, the other side of the street's Beverly Hills. And you go a couple blocks, there's some beautiful, beautiful homes. And the house I'm in is like a 1918 historic home. In the back, you can walk through all the neighbors' properties. And about a month and a half ago, it's 8 o'clock, a Sunday, and my wife and I are watching TV, and we hear something shatter, big glass break. So I jump up, run to my door, and as soon as I'm going to open it, I can hear something get thrown at my back door. And I open the door, and there's a homeless lady there who had just thrown a shovel out of my flower pot at my front door, who had just broke the neighbor's table. So I ran after her. She confronted me, and my first thought is, what am I going to do? Hit this mental health lady who's in psychosis?
Right.
And I let her yell at me in this, and she ended up going away and kind of got chased away by a few neighbors. She did over $10,000 worth of damage in 24 hours to 30 of our homes here. And the neighbors called the police, and they show up and they said, what do you want us to do? Go talk to her? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, she has no resident. She lives in a tent over there. We can charge her, go to jail, and she'll be out the next day. And I'm like, aren't there any services, and they have the pet teams and stuff, but nobody wants to help these people.
Mhm.
And when we have people like that lost in addiction, left to fend for themselves, you're going to have situations like this. But this lady was also, turns out, charged with throwing things at women walking down the road and assaulting people, and now they've got her incarcerated. But when you have 70,000 people on the street, and a majority of them are like this, it's scary times,
Yes, it is.
and we're not helping our citizens here. And the amount of veterans that are on the streets here,
Yes.
it's horrific. And we can keep talking about it and talking about it, but son of a gun, we need to change some things to get the real solutions in. Nobody should, in this country we live in, have to ask for help and can't get it. What? This is the United States of America.
Right.
And you're told to call, and it's a 6 to 12 week wait to get a bed, and you need to call every Friday at noon. Hell, I'm just trying to get through the next 3 hours.
Right.
So yeah, our system's broken. Unfortunately, people want to punch holes in everything. They don't want to do the work to find a solution here. And then let's add this one and then this one, and bring a community together. Because I see jails that are flourishing because they have recovery pods and drug court. And I see the programs that flourish in the schools. And then we see the ones that don't, because I speak in high schools all over the country with my wife, Jennifer, and a lot of the schools don't have a social worker, don't even have a school counselor, don't have a school nurse. Who are these
Wow,
kids to talk to?
that's
Yeah,
scary. That's real scary for someone who spent the last year and a half working in a school, and it's like myself and one other person and two other people wasn't enough. So I can only imagine not having anybody at all. So that's
yeah,
scary, especially times that we live in, and with social media and bullying and drugs and alcohol just just getting worse. And we talked about the rappers and other musicians glorifying all this stuff, and that stuff is continuing to get worse too. So it's crazy times that we live in right now.
well, I live here in LA, and in the past, a rapper was shot and killed yesterday at a chicken and waffle restaurant.
Yeah,
He
I
was
heard
there
about
with his
heard about that.
girlfriend, but he was posting pictures, flashing money and jewelry, and they robbed him. And another one they just hit in the Hollywood Hills last week and shot him. And he said, I was posting pictures of money and jewelry. People are desperate today, a lot more desperate due to COVID.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't care. It's jewelry, it's this, let them take it. But that our country's got to this place. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting any better. And we have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm really scared what the country's going to look like in 20 years. When Abby's 27 or 25,
Yeah,
it's really, and you got to be diligent. And fentanyl's in everything. It's in
yeah.
everything.
Mm.
And kids that aren't drug addicts are dying. Kids that are trying something for the very first time are dying. And these people aren't choosing to die. They are being poisoned. This is truly poisoning. It's not overdosing, it's poisoning. Um,
Yeah, I got a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter, and they're finally old enough to really have the conversations of drugs and alcohol, and explaining no fentanyl, and they're into like the videos on YouTube, and try to watch. I try to limit the news as much as possible, but they know what's going on in the world, and having these
the-
real
these kids
conversations.
they got this thing called a cell
Yes.
phone. They got the world at their fingertips, right,
Yeah.
right here in front of them. It is right there. And it's crazy what they can find out there. And these kids are smart today. I mean,
Yeah.
they're learning about things that we didn't learn until we were 10 or 12. They're learning at 4 or 5 because it's on YouTube.
Right.
It's
Like we first learned
parents
it
need,
in school, and now they're just learning like four or
well,
5 years old, and at least I didn't learn a lot of the drug stuff until like I was around their age, or talking to my friends, and then like the school teacher, like the basics, which is
right. Yeah, but I think a lot of parents still want to be friends with their kids versus parents. And you know you got to be parents. When your kid's 18 and they're either going to college, or you're packing their stuff and helping them move out, or they're joining the service, then they can go be your friend. But otherwise, your kids aren't your friends. Parents need to be parents. It's not cool to have your high school kids friends over and letting them smoke weed and drink in the house. Can't do things like that.
right.
If your kids are coming home and seeing the mom and dad, as soon as they get home from work, having to have a couple cocktails, that instills in those kids, oh, when I'm successful, I get to come home from work and drink vodka like daddy does. Kids mirror what their parents and what they see in their environments.
No,
We
absolutely.
need a lot more positivity out there. We need more real talk.
No, yeah, no, I try to be, honest with them. No, try to be age appropriate, which I always find like a fine line of trying to do. And basically, when the the book that's coming out October 5th, like is part of our story. So it's like try to like ask questions. They asking questions. I'm trying to like be age appropriate to like what to say, how to say it, and it's like I like struggle, kind of like struggle with that. But I want to be honest and have a real conversation with them, age appropriate wise, and but these conversations have to be had, and just working. You know, when we first spoke in the Bronx, and now I'm working in Delaware, and I'm still like, I still see not as much. I still see the same kind of struggles, and I even struggle more now in trying to find resources in terms just any sort of resources here in Delaware, and
It's
just
tough.
it's tough, and there's barely any resources. And in terms of recovery, but it's on our topic today, like you basically have to go to PA or Maryland to find a good treatment program.
Yeah. Um, it's tough. It's tough. I know my buddy Brandon Novak opened a couple sober homes right in Delaware across the border because they're trying to bring some more recovery communities out there because there's not anything. And families, communities need to understand when, especially when we go into rural communities and speak, and we'll be talking to the parents at night and the community leaders, and I'm trying to explain why they need sober living in town. And they're like, well, we don't want those people here. Hold on. You'd rather have a child molester living next door to you than 6 or 8 adults that are turning their lives around, that are working, paying rent, productive members of society. You don't want that. But once you educate them, they start bringing it in, because those are the kids volunteering on the weekend, cleaning the roads, helping with the veterans party or whatever, the variable is. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah, that in New York before I moved, there was a lot of like pushback in terms of the the former mayor like trying to use like hotel rooms for the homeless people, and he got a lot of pushback about that, and it was like, well, at least he's trying to come up with a solution, like, and trying to did he do maybe didn't do a great job like explaining why people need to go there. But if you rather have somebody be homeless, be on the street, or have somewhere place to live, that way they could focus on what else they need to focus on. And if you have a
Right.
place to live, then they can focus on maybe try to find a job somewhere. I could shower and actually try to go look for a
Feel
job
like a
interview or
human
something.
being.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
hard to get a job, because there's a lot of homeless people out here that are really, really good people that aren't in addiction. And I was talking with one of the guys, and he said, it's hard for me to get a job when, I haven't showered in 2 weeks, and I'm educated, I'm this, but nobody's going to hire me. But unfortunately, what happens is, like in Los Angeles, they're wanting to take some of these abandoned or unoccupied hotels and just put all the homeless people in there. What we're trying to explain is you need to have services in there. You need peer recovery support specialists, because if not, you're going to take all, and you need to have rules that there's no drinking or drug use if you live here. There can't be,
Right.
because you put these people in hotel rooms by themselves, they use by themselves, they die by themselves.
Right.
That's what happened during the pandemic here when they, started putting people in hotels. The overdoses blew through the roof. So I wish more people that were making the decisions on the political front had people like me or you involved in guiding and directing, because we just can't have politicians making decisions recovery related, or having a medical expert chime in. No, let's get people that are really in the trenches here that know what's going on, and we can tell you what's up and up. So
No,
but
I,
it's,
I, I
it's
feel
turning in some places. So it's just a battle, but we keep battling. That's all we can do. We keep giving a message of hope. I tell people, if you got a heartbeat, you got hope. The hardest thing to do is this: put your hand up and say, I need help. Whether you're thinking of self-harming or suicidal thoughts or mental health, anxiety, panic, bipolar, schizophrenia, addiction, doesn't matter, alcoholism, ask for help. Oh, eating, gambling,
yeah,
sex, you're not alone.
yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I know we focus so much on the drugs and alcohol, but like you mentioned, like the sex addiction, the gambling, gambling addiction is no joke. I had a client who was, I just knew first of the month in casino, and it was like without fail every month. It was like, and a couple of days later ends up just having a psych breakdown, boom, in the hospital. It was like comes out Next month, boom, same back in our
Same
house.
thing. And this thing too, the gaming, the digital, the kids that are addicted, the parents that are addicted to technology, hell, I can get addicted to it.
Mm.
I went to my wife and I were in the Florida Keys, I think last year, and I had to take Facebook and Instagram off my phone and Twitter so I can, have some actual downtime. Because if it's there, I'll still look at it. It's insane.
Yeah, I admit I'm in the same boat. I was in Jamaica for a few days and still like I wasn't really posting much, but definitely kind of like scroll a little bit until like the kids would wake up for breakfast, and I kind of like scroll along. Like it's really hard nowadays to kind of be like completely like turn off, especially when you're trying to run a business, from the ground up, and things are like starting to happen a little bit, and so it's yeah, definitely. I'm afraid for like the kids too. I definitely see like my kids, if it's not electronics, it's like they don't know what to do with them. So I'm like go out, go out. If you
Well,
don't go outside, like
yeah, I'm telling you, it's getting them outside. And when I have our daughter Mackenzie, when she spends half the time with us, and I mean, we're at the park every day, we're outside, we're doing whatever. And some of these kids are just raised on a cell phone. I'll go into the inner city of Chicago, and some of these kids have never left a 10-block radius. They never went to Lake Michigan. They never saw the Sears Tower, Navy Pier. It's like kids here in East LA, they've never been to the Santa Monica Pier. What?
wow.
Never went to Huntington Beach. It's, out in New York, never been out to Rockaway Beach. It's, and that's what
Don't even
happened.
live the borough. Like forget like or go to the other side of the borough. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I don't know what the answer is.
yeah, I don't either.
I see people are like, oh, I wish we could get everyone to come together. It'll never happen because of people's egos and their pride and their agendas and whatever. And all I can do is stay in my lane, try to be the best version of me. Always be there to offer guidance and hope and offer a lending hand. And if I can't help them, I usually can pick up the phone and find someone in that part of the country that can. And that's all we can do. We got to pick and choose our battles, and whatever lane you want to go and be the best at it. Whether you're speaking or you're doing interventions or you're a social worker or a therapist or advanced nurse practitioner.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think well, since we last spoke, there've been more and more states legalizing marijuana. You seen like that's made a positive difference at all? Do you like
The disaster. I mean, I can't tell you, across the street from my house, they just shut down another operation that opened up. You can go buy pot on every damn corner, but what they thought was going to do was bring in a bunch of money, which it hasn't brought in a bunch of money, and the illegal business has blown through the roof. So I can go buy an ounce of weed here for $400, or I can call Bob, who's going to bring it to my house for $150. So the black market is blown through the roof right now. It's been a detriment, and now there's more car accidents and people being impaired, and yeah, it's not, and I'm not talking adults. Adults do what you want, but
mm,
yeah, I don't think it's a benefit at all. It's a disaster.
wow. And people don't really like look at it like that. It's like they give like the highlights. Oh, like
Well,
this
every,
person's
every
bringing
week.
money in and this and
No,
that.
every week one of these places is getting robbed, getting shot up, people are getting killed. You just bring the riffraff in. Not everyone's riffraff. There's some really great people out there, but it's brought in an illegal market that's just blown through the roof. And the tax dollars that were supposed to be made and given away, I don't see them. But if you're going to do it, legalize everything and be done with it. Legalize it all, but have pure heroin here. So there's no fentanyl. Tax it and hope for the best. But I don't know what the answer is. But my answer on the recovery side is we need more long-term solutions. Simple as that.
What? Well, I'm asking this question. What do you think that this all this fentanyl is coming from, or how does it get? Like, if I want, like for example, I wanted to smoke some marijuana, and like Now I know I'm going to take a chance. Probably they might have like fentanyl on it, depending on where I get it from. Like what, like where's it like coming from? Is it like coming
It's
from South
everywhere,
America?
man.
I
It's
know
all
it's everywhere, but like
it's all coming China through Mexico, and it's friggin' potent and it's deadly, and they're making pills, and people don't understand that the busts now aren't 2 or 5 kilos, it's 10 or 20 tons.
Mhm.
Tons. It's not 1,000 pills, it's 50 million pills. These are record numbers. It's not going away. It's just getting worse. It's getting saturated and it's destroying generations.
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot of intent behind that. You know, unfortunately, this country uses a lot of illegal substances to self-medicate, and it's just causing more internal turmoil, job loss, and hurting our economy and losing, destroying families.
oh yeah, it's families, communities, like neighborhoods. Like I don't think a lot of communities even still haven't yet to recover from the crack epidemic from the '80s.
No, I know. And it's just it's not getting any better. So I don't know. We can just keep push forward and doing what we do in our lanes and go from there. That's about it.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. That's all what we could really do from our end, and then I'll keep fighting the good fight, and I've reached out to like local politicians to come on and have a discussion. Anybody in terms of politicians, like don't use my podcast to seek re-election, but I want to have a legit conversation
Sure.
as to what ideas you have, because this problem is not going away. You said the last time, and even uh, and quote, we're in a pandemic within the pandemic, and that always struck me. Like 2 years later, that still
Yeah.
struck me, and like no, we've had like celebrities, passing away. You think that would make a difference, and things are just like getting worse, and it's not getting any better anytime soon. Like as much as I love like shows like Narcos and stuff like that, I think that kind of glorifies things as well. It kind of like, even though there's some fiction into it, but it definitely kind of makes sense as to a little bit as to why America plays a big problem in terms of the addiction that we're currently in right now.
Well, the U.S. government was very instrumental in the cocaine movement and bringing all the cocaine into the United States via the CIA. So it's a fact. I mean, they did it. Boston George Young, who was a dear friend of mine and my wife's, who the movie Blow is based on, that my wife was in, George said he worked for the CIA. He worked for George Bush, and they would smuggle the cocaine and put it on oil rigs in Venezuela, and the U.S. Coast Guard would pick it up. They were all in it, cahoots. They still are. So who knows? All I know is I got to stay in my lane
Yeah,
and keep my recovery first and foremost. And I'm not going to change this system. I'm going to make a little dent in it. And if you make a little dent, we all make little dents. We keep making more progress. That's all we can do.
right. Tell me. Now you mentioned earlier about your book. Tell me about it.
That's just my life journey of trials and tribulations as a very successful business entrepreneur at a very young age, and struggled with addiction, ultimately heroin addiction, and a couple journeys to prison, and prison to walking out, to turning my life around, and then my son passing away on my 21-month sobriety date, and so on. But it's on Amazon. It's called From Dope to Hope by Tim Ryan, a man in recovery, and it's a powerful read, and it's hope and inspiration. I wrote it about 5 years ago, and people still enjoy it. So that's about it. Now my wife and I speak all over the country. If you want to check us out, it's dopetohope.com. Bam, bing, boom. That rocked. Love it. We got to do this
Awesome.
again soon.
No, yeah, absolutely. Now, have it. Just out of curiosity, like I always like to throw a little controversy into it, but have any like master's level social work programs reached out? Because you guys would be great in terms of like talk about the addiction, and maybe get some social work, more social workers to work in the field of addiction.
when I was in Chicago, I spoke to a number of the colleges, Loyola, DePaul, University of Chicago, and we'd go speak to their ology classes. And I'd really lay out what it looks like, what their career is going to be, what they need to really expect. So people's expectations are truly understood, because people want to go help and do all this, and this is great, but you're going to walk into a lot of people's shit shows and trauma and live in that for a long time. And you need to have these tools and this balance, and it's really powerful. But the cool thing is watching these young men and women 2, 3, 4, 5 years later and seeing where they're at and what they're doing and the careers blossoming. But yeah, you got to keep paying it back. If you don't pay it back, it'll never be paid forward.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know, that's part of what I use the podcast for now, is to pay it back, pay it forward, and have people like yourself and other social workers and mental health professionals come on the podcast and kind of talk and kick it, have a conversation based on the work that we do in the field. Where can people find you?
Easiest way is at our website, dopetohope.com, dopetohope.com. You can catch me on Twitter at A Man in Recovery, or Tim Ryan, Dope to Hope on Instagram. And my wife is Jennifer Jimenez, Gimenez, on all platforms. Check us out, follow us, hit us up. We'll come out and speak and share. Thank you so much for your time, my brother. I love you.
Thank you. Like you said, brother. Take care.
We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.